June 6, 1944. D-Day. The invasion of Europe on the Normandy coast of France. Thousands of men, supported by naval and air forces, land to destroy an evil regime in the largest amphibious assault of World War II.
Our first assault wave had a full share of heartbreaking misadventures. Many of their boats were hung up and wrecked on steel hedgehogs. Plunging fire from enemy batteries was extremely accurate. In the confusion, boats went astray or got out of control and crashed into one another. Forced to jump out of sinking boats, many men had to discard their weapons and equipment to save themselves from drowning. Casualties in the first hour were heavy.
Among these brave men is 22-year-old John Trippin, who lands with his engineer unit in the second wave at Omaha Beach. Their objective, the castle at the top of the deadly Veerville Draw.
I don't know how it would be secured because his group originally was scheduled to be in the first wave. And on his particular landing craft, as they started to approach the beach, I guess the captain of his landing craft was seeing all the other landing craft getting destroyed. So he decided to just sail around for a little while. And so instead of being in the first wave, he ended up either on the second or third wave because the driver of the landing craft just wasn't in a hurry to get to shore. But when he stepped off, and even when they got close to shore, the landing craft wouldn't go all the way to the beach because they were seeing anybody who went close to the beach was getting destroyed. So they dropped him off maybe 100 yards off the beach. And unfortunately for my father, who had full battle pack and a BAR and all that type of stuff, heavy equipment with him, they dropped him off far enough offshore where there was a underground hole from all the naval bombardment. There had been so much naval shelling, a lot of the shells fell short of the beach. And so when he stepped off the landing craft, instead of landing on sand up to his neck, he stepped into like a 15-foot crater underwater, which he couldn't see. So immediately he went below the water because he had, 50, 100 pounds of gear on him. He sank to the bottom. And they told him to wear his gas mask because the Germans were using gas, which I don't know was true or not, but they believed that was true. And so, he sank right to the bottom of the crater. And he said, well, I'm either going to die of poison gas or I'm going to die of drowning. And basically took off his gas mask, lost all his equipment, basically, stripped down in order to be able to swim out of the crater and make it to the beach. But as soon as he got to the beach, that wasn't an issue because there was enough equipment, from the people that had fallen, where he could pick up another helmet, he could get a gun, he could get whatever he needed. But he said it was hell on earth. It was absolutely hell on earth. In his group of 500 engineers, I believe 300 of them died in the first 90 minutes. And of the 200 that survived the initial landing, only half of those made it back by the end of the war. So he was literally the last man standing out of his group.
At the castle, 14-year-old Jean-Paul Hausermann and his family watch and wait. For 4 long years, the Hausermanns endured Nazi occupation of a castle that has been in their family for generations. General Rommel would stay at the castle when he inspected the beach defenses.
Generalfeldmarschall Rommel im Hauptquartier des Oberbefehlshabers West, Generalfeldmarschall von Rundstedt. Die beiden Truppenführer im Gespräch. Im Sonderauftrag des Führers besichtigt Generalfeldmarschall Rommel die Befestigungsanlagen an der Atlantikküste. Neben den Offizieren werden auch erfahrene und bewährte Unteroffiziere zu der Besichtigung herangezogen. Panzersperren.
When Rommel come back from Africa, come here and say to the colonel who is in charge of German army in this what happened where called Omaha Beach, and say to the German colonel, you are not ready. If the Tommy land here, you are not ready to push the Tommy to the sea. So you have organized the defense. So the Germans make here a trench, not in the garden, but here in the wood, and all the points of shooting are next to the chateau, like this. You can perhaps show the chateau. Like this, you see on your right, the fields are full of mines. On the left, the same. So they say, if they land, if they want to cross the chateau, from here we can easy with a machine gun try to shoot them. And they have made in the wall little window, two and two and two, to shot like this as well. And they have, the colonel have put here a German soldier, perhaps a sergeant, and 6 young soldiers, 16-year-old. They have never made the war, but the sergeant was in Stalingrad, so he knows the war. And he was sent here to relax, a nice place to relax. Many times I say to my children, even in the civilian way, you never have your enemy in front of you. Your enemy knows you and come on your back, even if you are a civilian. And that happened here. All the German machine guns are on this side, and the Americans have arrived on the back.
John Trippen's road to D-Day was a long one, training first in the States, then in England.
My dad was one of a very large family. His parents were immigrants from what was at that time Hungary, but is in current day Romania, and grew up in Aurora, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. Traditional family. Everybody worked hard. Everybody went to church. Everybody followed the rules. When World War II started, when Pearl Harbor happened, pretty much all the draft age eligible young men joined the military. And my father did just as his brothers did. He had a brother that was in the Merchant Marine. He had another brother who was also in the Army. And all the males of the family joined up right away. And I maybe that was typical. I know that he had some of his training in Texas, but he was also sent to Washington State to get some cold weather training as well. I know that I've got some photographs of him in uniform and skis. I don't think they ever sent him to Alaska, but I know he definitely was in Washington State and did training in Texas as well. And he told me one time when he was on route to Texas for training, they were on a passenger train with all the troops to go to training, and for some reason the train stopped in the middle of the desert someplace, and none of the windows opened, and they wouldn't let anybody get off the train. And so he said they just baked. But he said, at that time you followed the rules. And if you were ordered to do something, you did it. And you didn't complain. You just did it. Yeah, he definitely knew something was up, because one of his assignments was to measure the width and height of all the bridges between the bases and the ports where they'd embark from. And so they told him, okay, you've got to see, is there enough clearance for example, a tank to be on the back of a semi-trailer and still make it underneath the bridge, or do we have to find another route?
At the end of the longest day, Trippen, who jumped on barbed wire so his men could clear an obstacle, spent the night under German artillery fire.
The Chateau, where Jean Paul is basically at a T coming off the beach. And from the upper floors of the Chateau, you can actually see the landing beach, which is probably why the Germans made it their headquarters for overseeing that part of their coastal defense. But the Chateau had a number of towers to it. And so as the Allies were coming off the beach, they had kidnapped one of the local women from the area, stripped her naked, and put her in the window of this turret, with the window open, beckoning the soldiers, come forward, save me, not knowing. And as the soldiers would go forward, they didn't know that there were Germans with machine guns standing right behind her. So as soon as they, appeared visible, they'd get gunned down. And it was happening a lot. It was slowing the advance. And so my father was there. One of his friends named Joel Oles, whose family lives in Houston, where I live, was also with my dad. And about that time, as they were watching more and more of these guys get machine gunned by the Germans, some tanks came rolling off the beach that had been unloaded. And they asked my dad and Joe Oles for directions to a nearby place where they were supposed to be assigned to go. And my dad said, not going to tell you until you first take out this tower. And the tank commander said, well, what's the problem? And so he described what the Germans were doing. He goes, let me show you how the tank corps solves that. And it took them, 2 or 3 shells, and there wasn't nobody else left in that tower. And that tower is still in ruins right outside the front door to the right. If you step out of the Chateau, you can see, damage to the Chateau from where some of the shells hit, but that tower is still there and it's destroyed.
The next day, terrible skirmishes occurred around the castle. The Hauserman family allows John Trippen to sleep in the barn while the battle raged on. Trippen leaves his sanctuary several times to procure fresh meat from a cow killed in a nearby field. He learned later that the field was full of mines that killed several soldiers.
The first night in the little wood, and with Gagnepin, another soldier who have land, and they spent the first night like guards in the wood, and tell to the officer, but we have nothing to stop the German if an attack, and the officer say, we have nothing. So if the German attack, you shot that make noise like this, we know that you have troubles. He said, we have a good chance, nobody come. But our big problem is Gagnepin, like me, when we sleep, we make. So we make, each 2 hours we change. One stay looking and the other, and they shut up. And after the 8th of June, he arrived here, they push all out the furniture and the desk of John Trippen was in this corner. He explained me that the telephone lines from the beach, there are few here, and the dockers say, I have in this beach this ammunition, 8 jeep, 2 trucks, 2 tanks. Where I have to put that? And from here we say, okay, the ammunition you put that in this field, the trucks in this one, the jeep here. We dispatch all. And when the army needs something, they come here, and for instance, Patton, before to make the attack against Brittany, come here and spend 21 minutes, and he tell me, these 21 minutes was the longest of my life, because Patton say, I need so many tanks, I need so many trucks, I need this kind of ammunition, I need so and so and so. So Trippen and the other write paper, so. And when Patton has finished, he have so big of little paper with all what he have to provide, and they go, and the officer and the soldier of Patton go, and this was. So all the telephone line here and from where were dispatched. And they have 5 kilometers from here, near the village of Agnières, a big stock of TNT ammunition. Some American soldiers are working, and German soldiers, they are in jail, they work. And what happened, nobody knows, but one moment all will explode. And all the German soldiers and American soldiers die. And the shot of the hair was pushed the window outside here at 7 kilometers.
Explosion blew out the windows.
Now in his 90s, John Paul Hauserman remembers the heavy combat around the castle, including a fierce fight in the small forest behind the house.
Sergeant was here with the other soldier, with a machine gun, all closed. And don't open that, because if you open that, if you are on the other side, you see that move, and that you are advised. But coming, this American soldier tell me, when we are coming, we are well trained. We have spent 2.5 years in England training. We are out of training, but we have never made the war. And we are joking. We have chewing gum. Some are smoking, joking. So, and he said me, I remember one of us have something here and working, bang, clang, 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 clang. So the German soldiers have heard that and wait. When the surgeon coming from Stalingrad, they are not very far. He opened the door. The Germans have put the machine gun and fight. Look what they have looked. The American say here, the American coming by this way cannot, no possibility at all to go outside. So the Germans have shot all of them, and they are so near that the American soldiers say they are cut by the middle. The boys are cut, all that side. And I was the left. And if you right, the road is going a little bit. However, the last one, each one I move, I just have shot in my back, and I go outside. And I go to Omaha corner, and I say to an officer, German are in the little wood. We have. They killed some people. We need a tank to kill the. And the officer said, look boy, we don't have tank. And in this moment, some American soldiers arrived from the beach. I know they arrived from the beach, just landing, because when they're working in the shoes, they have still water. But and the officer to the people in charge of these 32 boys, you're looking for a job? I say, yes, okay, go to the wood and kill the German, but don't take the little road, go another way. And they come by this way. From one wall to another wall, making all the time too much noise. You see some people, no, okay, look, no, I don't see nothing. And the Germans are here with the mother waiting. And they arrive on the other side. And it was a little door, and once the Germans are killed in the door, and the Americans arrive. And they here, you have 7 German soldiers and 32 American soldiers come. The American have the rifle with 5 shots. On five. The German have the mother only with 1. Rock, 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 boom. Rock, rock, rock. But when they had together, the German have the bayonet on the rifle, and the American soldier have only a knife here. But at least the German are all killed, and the American lost again some people. That makes 23 American soldier and German soldier die here for a little wood behind my home. And each time I come here, I say in my mind, if I was the last German soldier, and I have looked at all my fellows are killed, and only one, perhaps I can have in my mind, okay, it's okay for me, I stop, take my arm, I'll cast, okay, I surrender. Because we don't make the war for pleasure. We make the war because we want something in peacetime, more land, more money, but it's not for pleasure. Not if they kill me, that do nothing more for my country. If I stay here and save my life, I can help for rebuild Germany. But the last German soldier don't do that. He was killed. And I say also, and if I was an American soldier here, and I am looking at coming the German soldier like this, it's finished. I have no authority to kill him. It's okay. He surrender. But I heard that my fellow here is crying because he lost, or well, he's crying because he's dying. And here also, and I have all the head here because his head exploded. And I say, oh, looks, I hate you. It's so easy to do and kill him. Many times I put the 2 questions to soldiers. American soldiers, French soldiers, English soldiers, German soldiers. Nobody answered me. Only one time a French general put an answer and say, look boy, remember that a soldier is alone. No orders. You are alone and you have to decide. Or you kill or you are killed. That is the history of the little wood behind my home.
After days of bitter fighting, the Vierville Castle falls to the Americans. Eventually, all of Normandy is taken, then France, and soon Hitler's Third Reich falls. However, the story doesn't end there for the Trippen and Hauserman families.
They were very, very happy when the Americans showed up to liberate them, to free them. And my father befriended the family, and they're a lovely family. I mean, they really, truly are. And I think at the time, Jean-Paul was maybe 14 years old at the time that the invasion started. And he told me a story about the German colonel who was in command of the Chateau. He said the morning of the invasion, and they had already sighted the landing ships offshore. He came down for breakfast wearing his dress uniform, like he was going to go to a ball or something. And Jean-Paul's mother asked the German colonel who's in command, like, why are you dressed in your dress uniform? Can't you see the Americans are here? And the colonel said, well, if you know you're going to die, you may as well at least dress well. And that German colonel was killed in the shelling when he went to the command post. But my father befriended the family, and they let him. Not the first night he slept outside. The second night, I believe, he slept in the barn, which is still there. And he said that the officers got the nice rooms in the chateau, but he got to sleep in the barn. But it didn't matter. He was happy to have survived that far. And he said the family couldn't be nicer. So over the last 80 years, it's really become almost like a second family for our family and also for theirs. So all of the kids in our family, as well as a lot of the other soldiers who stayed at the chateau, have been over to visit, and they roll out the red carpet for us. And likewise, their family has always been welcome in our homes here in America. I know both of John Paul's daughters, as well as his granddaughters, have come over to the States. They've stayed with our family. My sister Marianne, who's fluent in French, has been their host on numerous occasions. And it's in a age where people can be shallow, they can be transactional. These people are real, and they've been real friends for 80 years, through thick and thin, through all kinds of events, through the passing of my father, who died about 8 years ago. They're just amazing people, and they will never forget what the American soldier did for them and for their family. And it's real. When he came back to the States, he married his sweetheart. He was already engaged when he left, but he didn't want to get married before he left because he didn't want to leave her a widow, not knowing if he'd make it back or not. My father and mother had 4 kids. I'm the youngest of the 4, 2 girls, 2 boys. He lived a fairly normal life. I'm sure he must have in his own way suffered from PTSD, because he was, pretty harsh about some things, but he just coped with it. And he worked for his first job working out of the war was for Standard Oil of Indiana, which later became part of BP. So he worked for them designing service stations. And then he got a better offer from a guy who was starting an automobile company called Tucker. And there's been some really famous movies made about that history. But he ended up, after several different jobs, being the city engineer for a large suburb of Chicago of maybe 150, 200,000 people, and just lived a normal life. And he never would talk about the war. He never would talk about his service in the war. He always said he didn't want to talk about it because it was very private and very painful. The only time he opened up on it was during the 70th anniversary of D-Day, when we were in Vierville at the Chateau. He finally talked about it a little bit, and I think he made his peace with it. I really, truly did. He had always felt bad about the things that he saw and some of the things that he did. Taking life was not easy for him, but he did it because he needed to, and he always had pains with that. But at the 70th anniversary, when we had the parade on the beach, he literally had hundreds of French people coming up, hugging him, kissing him, and it really moved him. And I think he finally made peace with all the things that happened during the war. And in fact, I know he did, because he got to see everybody in our family. All my brothers and sisters were there. His grandkids were there to show him love. And after he came back from the 70th anniversary, he passed away very peacefully about a month later. So it was, I guess you would say, a storybook ending to an amazing, courageous, and impactful life.
John Triple spent June, July, and August. At end of August, he lived. And after him, we were hospital, but September. But it was not a hospital. We are too far away from where they are export to England. The wounded people are export. the harbor was only import. They export only 100 people. That happened in the main road here. That's the head of this place.
And when did you meet John after the war for the first time?
John, Gagnepin, Lynch, they come, if I remember right, 3 or 4 years after the end of the year. I say that because when I was 17 years old, I get to have the last exam from the French school. So my father said, look boy, you have your exam, okay, goodbye, take your life. And I have to find a job. And I said to my father, you are not here because you work in harbor, but if you like, I take the management of the chateau, the farm, and the land. And do that for me, and I report that to you. And my father said, okay. But I have each month to send to my father how much I have put money in that or the money to buy a cow or sell beef, so. And someone say I was here in 47. And it's 47 or 48, we have for 6th of June a meeting with a lot of American veterans coming, with John Triple, who come here with Gagnepin and with Lynch. Gagnepin is a French name. Gagnepin was a little bit an artist, and they make big pictures. I can show you the big paintings of this time. And Lynch was also from the National Guard, and he was officer of National Guard. And we behind friends because we joined the same ID to visit my son. My son John, who is admiral, tell me many times in the French Navy, they all the time send me in the United States because I speak American. But like say the teacher in the school, look boy, you speak very well English with a very bad American accent. That is the Jim John Triple work with my son.
And would you like to say any anecdote ou quelque chose qui arrive entre vous deux ou quelque chose comme ça que vous partagez?
I tell the last time he come.
Yeah.
Last time when you meet him, I have called him and said, in November, I have wrote a letter. John, are you coming for the D-Day, next D-Day? No answer. At least I take telephone line and say, hey John, you are coming or no? Why you are not coming? And he said, no, look boy, I'm tired. But you come with your children and your grandchildren. With the grandchildren. Okay, I go with the grandchildren. And he come with the grandchildren. And I have picture of this time. So he didn't see it. And I showed you the picture of the grandchildren down here. And he was very excited. So one day my wife or dad say, John, you are tired. No, I am not tired. You are tired. Okay, he leave. And 1 week after he was returned home, I received from his family a note like this. He was at home alone, eating the soup, and he died. But what is important is not now I have grandchildren, Julie, Marie, they were in the United States and they are in touch with girls of the same age. And you are going to New York, and the leader boy, the grandchildren of the leader are in New York, and you meet them in New York. That one thing. Our generation is out, but the young generation is going to be friends. That is important.
They remain friends for more than 70 years until John Trippin dies in 2014. Their families continue to visit each other to this day. Relationships forged in fire live on.